President Truman receives a memo from the Commerce Secretary, which essentially says that the United States will be bringing outstanding German scientists to, quote, advance the frontiers of scientific knowledge for national benefit. And what this was Project Paperclip. Between 1945 and 1959, the United States brought in untold numbers of scientists from Germany, many of them Nazis.
Wait, so this was after the Nuremberg trials?
Right, and in fact, some of the scientists went through Nuremberg and were released early to come to the United States.
I mean, it's sickening. I have a memorandum here where they're referring to Nazi war criminals as German talent.
They gave these people visas. And I've read that at least 8 Nazi scientists were at Edgewood, and 2 of them were Otto Ambros and Fritz Hoffmann. These were 2 of Hitler's favorite chemists in Nazi Germany.
I mean, Ambros was literally on trial in Nuremberg.
I mean, just like stepping back for a second, we take Nazi scientists and we bring them to our top arsenal for chemicals, where we are testing our own servicemen. I mean, just think about that for a second. That's not chilling. I mean, this is like, do we have any documents from Edgewood that show Ambros was a chemist there?
Yeah, there's documentation that both Ambros and Hoffmann were there, but it's a little bit unclear exactly if they were involved with Ketchum's work. We do know that Hoffmann did take an interest in LSD, so the idea that they collaborated in some way isn't too far out.
Sometimes mentioned that we brought over Nazi chemists to work in our labs. They were no real Nazis. I mean, they had to do what they were told back in Europe. Although there were a couple people that were in the chemical branch of my larger clinical research department that took place in these other buildings.
To me, Dr. Ketchum's statement that there were no real Nazis is disturbing. Although we can't prove or disprove the vet's claims of Nazi involvement in the psychochemical program, if you volunteered for the Edgewood assignment, you could find yourself in an actual gas chamber.
There were many other non-lethal agents that were developed and tested at Edgewood. They went way beyond psychochemicals. I think they really just cast a wide net in order to see what could perhaps give an edge on the battlefield.
I mean, it says here CS gas. Is that the same as the police use?
Yeah, but then with the Vietnam War, they had the idea to use this in combat.
This is a report on chemical munition systems currently under development by the United States Army.
So they had a project called Water Bucket to make riot control agents into tactical weapons. They tested it at Fort Campbell, American soldiers pretending that they were Viet Cong.
The objective of the test was to determine the effects of Agent CS on both masked and unmasked troops.
If you look at the Vietnam War, we had 2 things we used. We used herbicides and riot control agents on the battlefield. Riot control to get rid of cover, and herbicides to get rid of concealment. And that's the purpose of these kind of tests, was to show that this stuff is effective and make those weapons.
Troop Test Water Bucket 1 indicated that riot control agent CS was a potentially effective tactical weapon that could be employed both offensively and defensively. In December 1965, Troop Test Water Bucket 2 was conducted at Edgewood Arsenal, Maryland, to test the effectiveness in a series of simulated tactical situations.
At Edgewood, they're trying to test how much CS tear gas will produce a casualty effect on the battlefield. And so the levels that they would do there would be much higher than they would do for training purposes.
In this plant is a compound called CS, and it has a swift and pronounced effect on men. So much so that the United States Army Chemical Warfare Laboratories are investigating between the effective dose and the lethal dose.
We found in none that the CS they were using wasn't as potent as they thought it was. So when they said they were going to strengthen it, so we signed off on a dotted line, you know, good old soldiers as we were. We signed off, and then they started testing it.
What you are about to see are actual film clips of those tests.
They would never tell you what they were testing. It was just another gas. That was one of the 2 worst tests I ever took.